The arrangement. The penthouse elevator climbed 47 floors in complete silence, carrying Alena Harper toward a life she never wanted. Her reflection stared back from the polished steel doors, pale and hollow-eyed in the borrowed wedding dress that hung loose on her small frame. The white fabric felt like a costume, a lie stitched in silk and desperation. When the doors whispered open, she stepped into a world of glass and marble that gleamed under crystal chandeliers. The San Francisco skyline stretched beyond floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights blurring through the evening fog like scattered diamonds. Everything here screamed wealth, power, control, everything except the man waiting for her. Smith Carter stood with his back turned, hands clasped behind his perfectly tailored suit. At 32, he commanded one of the most powerful tech empires in Silicon Valley. His name was whispered in boardrooms and feared by competitors. The media called him ruthless, calculating, untouchable. But Alena saw something different in the rigid line of his shoulders, the way his fingers tapped against his thigh in an unconscious rhythm. He was nervous. "You should rest," he said without turning around, his voice clipped and professional. "There's a guest room prepared. You won't be disturbed." Alena set down her single suitcase. Everything she owned in the world reduced to one worn leather bag. "Is that what you think this is? A business arrangement where I disappear into a corner until you need me for photo ops?" Now he turned, those ice-blue eyes scanning her face with clinical precision. Smith Carter was handsome in the way expensive things were handsome, all sharp angles and perfect proportions. But there was something hollow behind his gaze, something that made her chest tighten despite her anger. "Isn't it?" he asked. "We both know why we're here. The scandal with the data breach needed a distraction. Marriage to an employee shows stability, commitment to the company family. You get financial security. I get positive headlines. Everyone wins." The words hit her like physical blows. Alena had known this marriage was transactional, but hearing it laid out so coldly made her stomach twist. She thought of her tiny apartment in Oakland, the stack of medical bills on her kitchen table, her younger brother's cancer treatments that had driven her to accept this devil's bargain. "You're right," she said quietly, moving toward the windows. "Everyone wins." But her reflection showed the lie. Behind her, Smith's expression shifted, something flickering across his features too quickly to read. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Alena pressed her palm against the cool glass, looking down at the world she'd never belonged to. Below, people moved through their lives with purpose and direction, while she felt suspended in amber. Beautiful. Entrapped. Alena. Her name on his lips sounded different than she'd expected. Softer somehow. "You don't have to pretend this is easy." She turned, surprised by the gentleness in his voice. For a moment, the corporate mask slipped and she glimpsed something raw underneath. Pain, maybe, or loneliness that mirrored her own. "Neither do you," she said. They stood there in the glittering cage he'd built, two strangers bound by necessity and secrets. The city hummed below them like a living thing, and somewhere in the space between them, something dangerous began to stir. Behind the mask. 3 days into their arrangement, Alena discovered Smith's secret. She'd been exploring the penthouse during his long hours at the office, mapping the boundaries of her beautiful prison. The living spaces were all steel and glass, cold as a museum. But when she found the hidden door behind his home office bookshelf, everything changed. The room beyond was smaller, warmer. Soft leather chairs faced a fireplace that looked actually used. Books lined the walls, real ones with worn spines and dog-eared pages. A guitar sat in the corner, its wood polished smooth by countless hands, and covering one entire wall were photographs. Not the sterile corporate headshots that decorated his office, but real moments. A young Smith laughing with an older man who shared his eyes. The same man teaching him to play guitar. Smith as a teenager, arms around a woman with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair. The progression told a story Alena hadn't expected. "You weren't supposed to find this." She spun around to find Smith in the doorway, his suit jacket gone, sleeves rolled up. For the first time since she'd known him, he looked uncertain. "I'm sorry," she said. "I was just looking for a book to read. I didn't mean to intrude." He stepped into the room, his fingers trailing along the back of one of the leather chairs. "My father," he said, nodding toward the photographs. "He died when I was 19. Heart attack. 1 minute he was there, teaching me a new chord progression. The next, he was gone." The pain in his voice was so raw it made Alena's throat tighten. "And your mother?" "Cancer. 2 years later." Smith moved to the fireplace, staring into its cold darkness. "She just gave up after he died. Stopped eating, stopped fighting. The doctors said it was the disease, but I knew better. She died of a broken heart." Alena found herself moving closer, drawn by the grief radiating from him like heat. "That's when you built the walls," she said softly. "When you decided it was safer not to feel anything." His laugh was bitter. "You think you have me figured out? I think we're more alike than you want to admit." Smith turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw him without the armor. Just a man carrying wounds that had never healed. "Why did you really agree to this?" he asked. "The money isn't enough. Not for someone like you." Alena's hands trembled. She'd kept this secret locked away, but something about this room, this moment, made the truth spill out. "My brother Jake, he's 17, leukemia, stage 3. Her voice cracked. "The treatments are experimental, not covered by insurance. Without them, the doctors give him 6 months, maybe less." Smith's expression shifted, something flickering behind those ice-blue eyes. "So we're both here because of love," he said quietly. "Just different kinds." "What do you mean?" He moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, cedar, and something darker. "I made my father a promise the night before he died, that I'd build something that mattered, something that would last. Carter Tech was his dream before it was mine. Every merger, every acquisition, every ruthless decision, it's all been for him. To prove his faith in me wasn't wasted." "That's not ruthless," Alena whispered. "That's devotion." Their eyes locked, and the air between them crackled with something electric, something neither of them could name. Smith reached out, his fingers barely brushing her cheek. "You should go," he said, his voice rough. "Before I do something we'll both regret." But Alena didn't move. Couldn't move. What if I don't want to go? The question hung between them, heavy with possibility. Smith's hand dropped and he stepped back, the walls slamming into place so fast it made her dizzy. "This isn't real, Alena. Don't confuse proximity with connection. In 6 months, when the media attention dies down and your brother is healthy, we'll dissolve this marriage and go back to our separate lives." That was the deal. His words were meant to create distance, but Alena heard what lay beneath them. Fear. Of wanting something. Of losing it. She turned to leave, then paused in the doorway. "For what it's worth, Smith, I think your father would be proud. Not because you built an empire, but because underneath all that ice you still remember how to feel." She left him standing in his sanctuary, surrounded by ghosts. But later that night, lying alone in the guest room, Alena heard it. The soft, haunting melody of a guitar drifting through the penthouse, playing the same sad song over and over, like a man trying to remember what it felt like to be whole. And she realized with terrifying clarity that the walls between them were already beginning to crack. The betrayal. 6 weeks into their marriage, Alena discovered she'd been a pawn in a much darker game. The invitation arrived on expensive cardstock, hand-delivered to the penthouse. A charity gala hosted by Victoria Chen, Smith's former fiancée and current rival CEO. Alena had heard whispers about Victoria, the woman who'd walked away from Smith 3 years ago to start her own competing tech firm. "We're not going," Smith said flatly, tossing the invitation onto the counter. But Alena saw the tension in his jaw, the way his hands clenched into fists. "We have to," she said. "If we don't show up together, people will talk. Isn't that the whole point of this arrangement?" Something flickered in Smith's eyes. For the past weeks, their relationship had shifted into dangerous territory. Quiet dinners where they actually talked. Mornings where he'd make her coffee exactly how she liked it. Stolen glances that lasted too long. The walls were crumbling and they both knew it. "Fine," he said, "but stay close to me." The gala was a glittering affair at the Fairmont Hotel, dripping with old money and new tech fortunes. Alena wore a deep emerald dress that Smith had insisted on buying, and the way his eyes had darkened when he first saw her made her stomach flip. Victoria Chen spotted them immediately. She was stunning in a way that made Alena's confidence waver. All sleek black hair, crimson lips, and a dress that cost more than Alena's yearly salary, but it was her smile that sent chills down Alena's spine. Sharp, predatory. "Smith," Victoria purred, gliding over. And this must be the employee you married to save your company's reputation. How practical. Smith's hand tightened on Alena's waist. Victoria, still bitter after all these years? Bitter? Victoria's laugh was like breaking glass. Darling, I'm grateful. You taught me that sentiment is a liability. Business is all that matters. She turned those calculating eyes on Alena. Has he told you why we really broke up? Or is he still playing the wounded hero? Victoria, don't, Smith warned, his voice low and dangerous. But Victoria was already reaching into her clutch, pulling out a folded document. 3 years ago, Smith's company was hemorrhaging money. A bad investment, a betrayed partnership. He was weeks away from bankruptcy. She handed the paper to Alena. So he made a deal. He'd leak my company's proprietary AI algorithm to his investors in exchange for their financial backing. The algorithm I'd developed while we were together, while I trusted him. Alena's hands trembled as she unfolded the document. It was an email chain, dated 3 years ago. Smith's name at the top. Details of Victoria's AI technology. Promises to investors. That's not what happened, Smith said, but his voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Victoria's smile widened. I spent 2 years rebuilding from scratch after you stole from me. And when I finally confronted you, do you remember what you said? The silence was deafening. You said business is war, and I play to win. Then you walked away without looking back. Alena felt something inside her chest crack open. She turned to Smith, searching his face for denial, for explanation. But what she saw there was worse than guilt. It was resignation, acceptance. Tell me she's lying, Alena whispered. Smith's jaw clenched. It's more complicated than that, is it? Victoria interjected. Here's the really delicious part, Alena. The data breach he needed to distract from. The one that made him marry you? It wasn't a breach at all. It was corporate espionage. Smith got caught stealing again, this time from his own competitors. The marriage was a publicity stunt to make him look human, redeemable. The world tilted. Alena grabbed the edge of a nearby table to steady herself. The medical bills, she said, her voice hollow. Jake's treatments. You said you'd pay for everything. I am paying, Smith said, reaching for her. That part was real. Alena jerked away from his touch. Was any of it real? The late-night conversations? The way you looked at me when you thought I wasn't paying attention? Victoria's laughter cut through the moment like a knife. Oh, this is better than I imagined. You actually fell for him. How delightfully tragic. But when Alena looked at Victoria, she saw something else. A flicker of pain beneath the vindictive smile. This woman had loved Smith once too. And he'd destroyed her. I need to go, Alena said, her voice breaking. Alena, wait. Smith grabbed her wrist. Let me explain. She wrenched free, tears streaming down her face. Explain what? That you're exactly who everyone says you are? That I was stupid enough to think I saw something real underneath? She ran through the crowd, ignoring the stares, the whispers. Behind her, she heard Smith calling her name, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Outside, the San Francisco night was cold and unforgiving. Alena stood on the sidewalk, gasping for air, feeling like she was drowning. Her phone buzzed. A text from her brother's nurse. Jake's latest test results came back. Not good. Doctor wants to discuss options tomorrow. And there it was. The cruel truth. She couldn't leave Smith. Couldn't walk away from this sham marriage. Because doing so meant watching her brother die. A car pulled up. Smith's driver. Mrs. Carter, the man said gently. Mr. Carter asked me to take you home. Alena climbed into the back seat, numb. Through the window, she saw Smith standing in the hotel entrance, his face a mask of anguish. For a moment, just a moment, she almost believed it was real. But Victoria's words echoed in her mind. Business is war, and I play to win. The car pulled away, and Alena realized with soul-crushing clarity that she'd fallen in love with a man who didn't know how to love anything except victory. And the cost of that mistake might destroy them both. The sacrifice Smith didn't come home that night. Or the next. Alena spent 2 days in the penthouse, watching the city through floor-to-ceiling windows, feeling like a ghost haunting her own life. Her phone stayed silent except for updates from Jake's medical team. The experimental treatment was failing. They needed to try something more aggressive, more expensive, more desperate. On the third morning, She found Smith in his hidden room, sitting in the dark with his father's guitar across his lap. "I forged the emails," he said without looking up. "The ones Victoria showed you." "They weren't real." Alena's breath caught. "What?" 3 years ago, I did try to save my company. But not by stealing from Victoria. I sold everything I owned, took out loans, mortgaged my future. It still wasn't enough. His fingers traced the guitar strings without making sound. Victoria's company was struggling too. When we broke up, she blamed me for her failures. So she fabricated evidence to destroy my reputation. Then why didn't you defend yourself at the gala? Now he looked at her, and the raw pain in his eyes made her chest ache. Because part of what she said was true. I did become ruthless after my parents died. I did make choices that hurt people. Maybe not Victoria, but others. Competitors. Employees who trusted me. He set the guitar down carefully. I looked at you standing there, believing the worst of me, and I thought maybe it's what I deserve. Alena moved closer, her anger warring with something more complicated. The data breach, she said. Victoria said it was corporate espionage. It was real. But the company I'm accused of stealing from? It's a front for Victoria's investors. She orchestrated the whole thing, planted false evidence, then used the media frenzy to force me into a corner. Smith stood, and she could see he hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. The marriage wasn't about looking human, Alena. It was about having someone in my life who couldn't be bought, who wasn't part of this world. Someone who might actually see me. That's why you chose me specifically, an employee no one would suspect of being involved in corporate games. At first, yes. He stepped closer. But then I got to know you. Your strength, your loyalty to your brother, the way you see through all my defenses. And I realized I'd made a terrible mistake. What mistake? I thought I could keep you at arm's length. Protect you from my world, from my enemies. His voice dropped to a whisper. Instead, I fell in love with you. And now Victoria knows, and she'll use it to destroy us both. The words hung in the air like smoke. Alena's heart hammered against her ribs. You don't mean that, she said. You're just saying what you think I want to hear. Smith pulled out his phone, showed her a news article dated that morning. Carter Tech CEO's wife's brother denied treatment. Questions arise about healthcare company. Ty's Alena's blood ran cold. What is this? Victoria went after Jake. She has connections at the hospital, board members she's cultivated. They're blocking his treatment, claiming insurance complications, experimental procedure violations. Smith's hands shook. She's using your brother as leverage to force me to sell her my company. Or to watch him die knowing it's my fault. The room spun. Alena grabbed the back of a chair. How long do we have? 48 hours. Then the hospital transfers him to palliative care. 48 hours. The words were a death sentence. What does she want? Alena asked, her voice hollow. Carter Tech. Full ownership. Every patent, every algorithm, every piece of my father's legacy. Smith moved to the window, silhouetted against the city lights. If I sign it over, she'll ensure Jake gets the treatment. If I don't, she'll let him die to prove a point. Then you have to do it, Alena said immediately. Sign over the company. Save Jake. Smith turned, disbelief on his face. Do you understand what you're asking? Carter Tech is everything. My father's dream, my life's work. Without it, I'm nothing. Without it, you're alive. You're free. Alena crossed to him, taking his face in her hands. And Jake gets to live. That's all that matters. It's not that simple. If I give Victoria the company, she'll dismantle it. Sell it for parts. Thousands of employees will lose their jobs. Everything my father built will be erased. The weight of the choice crushed down on them both. There has to be another way, Alena whispered. Smith's phone buzzed. A message from Victoria. Tick-tock, Smith. I'm waiting. He stared at the message, then at Alena. Something shifted in his expression, hardening into determination. There is another way, he said slowly, but you're going to hate it. Tell me. Smith pulled up a file on his phone. Financial records, offshore accounts, encrypted transactions. Before my father died, he created a failsafe. A digital key that would give me access to every algorithm, every piece of proprietary technology Victoria and every other tech company in Silicon Valley has been trying to steal for years. He called it the master code. Alena's eyes widened. That's worth billions. More. It's worth control of the entire tech industry. Smith's voice was grim. If I release it, every company becomes vulnerable, including Victoria's. She'd lose everything, just like she's trying to make me lose everything. But so would you. And thousands of innocent companies. Innocent people. Yes. The moral weight of it settled between them like a physical thing. Smith was offering to become the villain, to destroy an entire industry, to save one boy's life. You can't do this, Alena said. Smith, this would make you exactly what Victoria accused you of being. I know. His eyes held hers, unflinching. But I'd rather be a monster who saves your brother than a good man who watches him die. Alena felt tears streaming down her face. Why? Why would you sacrifice everything for us? Smith pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. Because for the first time in 10 years, I feel something other than emptiness. Because you make me want to be better, even if the path there requires me to be worse first. His voice broke. Because I love you, Alena. And love makes people do impossible, unforgivable things. The kiss was inevitable. Desperate. Filled with everything they couldn't say. When they pulled apart, Alena made her decision. There's a third option, she whispered. One you haven't considered. What? Me? She pulled out her phone, began typing. What are you doing? Smith grabbed her wrist. I'm the one Victoria really wants to hurt. Not you, not your company. She wants revenge on the woman who made you feel something again. Alena's fingers flew across the screen. So I'm going to give myself up. I'll leave you. Publicly denounce you. Claim the marriage was a fraud. I'll take all the blame for the data breach, say I was the corporate spy. Victoria gets her revenge, your reputation survives, and Jake gets his treatment. Absolutely not. Smith tried to take her phone, but she stepped back. It's already done. I just sent the email to every major news outlet. The color drained from Smith's face. Alena, do you understand what you've just done? You'll be charged with corporate espionage. Prison time. Your life will be over. But Jake will live. She smiled through her tears. And you'll still have your father's company. Some things are worth the cost. Smith pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. I won't let you do this, he said fiercely. I'll fight it. I'll tell everyone the truth. Then Victoria wins and Jake dies. Alena pulled back, framing his face with her hands. This is my choice, Smith, my sacrifice. For once, let someone save you instead of the other way around. His phone rang. Victoria's name flashed on the screen. They both knew what came next. The lawyers, the media circus, the systematic destruction of everything they'd built together. But as Smith answered the call, Alena felt a strange peace settle over her. She'd walked into this marriage a desperate woman making a devil's bargain. She was walking out of it as someone who'd learned that love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect choices. Sometimes love was just choosing who you'd burn for, and she'd chosen him. The truth, unburied. The press conference was scheduled for noon. In 3 hours, Alena would stand in front of cameras and destroy her own life to save everyone she loved. But at 9 a.m., Smith's lead attorney burst into the penthouse with a manila folder that changed everything. We found it, Marcus Chen said, breathless. He was Victoria's younger brother, the one family member who'd refused to take sides in the corporate war. The proof. Smith looked up from where he'd been staring at nothing, hollow-eyed and broken. Proof of what? Marcus spread documents across the dining table. Bank statements, medical records, encrypted emails. Victoria's father died of the same cancer Jake has. 5 years ago. She spent everything trying to save him. Bankrupted herself paying for experimental treatments that didn't work. His finger traced a line of transactions. That's why her company was failing when you two broke up, Smith. Not because of you. Because she was desperate and drowning. Alena moved closer, studying the papers. I don't understand. What does this have to do with now? Everything. Marcus pulled out another document. 3 days ago, Victoria made a massive donation to Jake's hospital. Not to block his treatment, but to fund it. Anonymously. Through a shell company. Smith's head snapped up. What? The hospital administrators who supposedly blocked Jake's care? They don't exist. Victoria fabricated the entire scenario. Marcus looked between them, his expression anguished. She wanted you to think she'd become a monster. Wanted you to believe she'd let an innocent kid die, but she couldn't actually do it. The truth hit Alena like a physical blow. She's been testing us, to see if we'd sacrifice everything for each other. But why? Smith's voice was raw. Marcus pulled out one final piece of paper. A letter, handwritten in elegant script. This was in her desk. I broke about 50 laws getting it, but I think you need to see it. Smith read aloud, his voice breaking. Dear Smith, if you're reading this, it means Marcus found his conscience. I've spent 3 years hating you, blaming you for my failures, convincing myself that destroying you would fill the emptiness. But watching you with her, seeing the way you've changed, I realized something. You didn't steal from me. You gave me the greatest gift. You let me go before my bitterness could poison us both. I orchestrated this entire game not to destroy you, but to see if you'd finally learned that some things matter more than winning. If you sign over Carter Tech to save that girl's brother, you'll have proven you're not the man I left. If you choose the company, you'll have proven I was right to walk away. Either way, I get my answer. And maybe finally I can let go. The boy gets his treatment regardless. I'm not the monster you think I am. I'm just someone who forgot what it means to be human until I watched you remember. Victoria. The silence in the room was deafening. Alena felt tears streaming down her face. She's been playing us this whole time. But not to hurt us, to save us. Smith's phone rang. Victoria, he answered, putting it on speaker. I assume you've seen the letter? Victoria's voice was tired, stripped of its usual venom. Victoria, Smith said carefully. Why? Because I needed to know if you were capable of loving something more than you loved winning. A long pause. Turns out you are. Congratulations, Smith. You've become a better man than I ever was. The emails you showed Alena at the gala. The forged evidence. All real, actually. I did try to destroy you 3 years ago. Spent a fortune creating false evidence, bribing journalists, preparing for war. Victoria's laugh was hollow, but I never pulled the trigger. Couldn't bring myself to do it. So I kept the ammunition, waiting for the right moment. Turns out there never was one. Alena grabbed the phone. My confession to the press. The corporate espionage charges. Already killed the story. Called in every favor I had. As far as the world knows, it was a technical glitch in your email system. No one saw anything. Why? Alena whispered. Why help us after everything? Because I spent 5 years watching my father die. And it taught me that revenge is just grief wearing a mask. Victoria's voice softened. Your brother deserves to live, and you too deserve a chance at something real. Something I threw away because I was too scared to trust it. Smith closed his eyes. The master code, my father's failsafe, doesn't exist. I made it up to see what you'd choose. Company or love, power or humanity. Victoria paused. You chose right, Smith. Your father would be proud. The line went quiet for a moment. I'm dropping the lawsuit against Carter Tech, Victoria said finally. And I'm leaving the country. Starting over somewhere I can't hurt anyone else with my bitterness. Victoria, wait, Smith said. You don't have to disappear. Yes, I do. Because every time I see you, I remember the person I used to be before the grief made me cruel. Her voice cracked. Be happy, Smith. Fall in love, build a life, let yourself feel things. Do all the things I was too afraid to do. She hung up. Alena and Smith stood in the penthouse, surrounded by the evidence of Victoria's redemption, feeling like they'd survived a storm they hadn't known they were in. She paid for Jake's treatment, Alena said wonderingly. She gave us everything. She gave us a chance, Smith corrected, pulling Alena into his arms. What we do with it is up to us. Alena looked up at him. This man she'd married out of desperation and learned to love through chaos. So what do we do? Smith smiled, really smiled, for the first time since she'd known him. We start over, for real this time. No arrangements, no business deals. Just two broken people figuring out how to be whole together. That sounds terrifying. It sounds perfect. They stood in the golden morning light, the city sprawling below them, alive with possibility. Alena's phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Great news. Jake's latest treatment is showing positive results. Doctor says he's responding better than expected. We're cautiously optimistic. She showed Smith the message, tears streaming down her face. "He's going to make it," she whispered. "Because of you. Your courage, your sacrifice. You saved him. We saved him, all of us. Even Victoria." Smith kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips, gentle and reverent, like she was something precious he'd almost lost. "Marry me," he said. Alena laughed through her tears. "We're already married, remember? That was a contract. A transaction." He pulled a ring box from his pocket, something he must have been carrying for days. "This is me asking you to choose me. Not because you have to, but because you want to. Marry me for real, Alena. Build a life with me. Teach me how to be human again." The ring was simple, elegant. Nothing like the ostentatious diamond she'd worn for appearances. This was real. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking on the word. "Yes, I'll marry you. For real this time." They held each other as the sun climbed higher, burning away the fog, revealing the city in all its flawed, beautiful glory. Outside, the world continued its relentless spin. Empires rose and fell. Fortunes changed hands. People made choices, some noble, some terrible, most somewhere in between. But in that moment, in that penthouse high above San Francisco, two scarred souls found something more valuable than revenge or empire or victory. They found each other. 3 months later, Alena stood in the hospital corridor, watching through a window as Jake laughed at something the nurse said. His hair was growing back, color returning to his cheeks. The doctors called it a miracle. Alena called it grace. Smith appeared beside her, 2 cups of terrible hospital coffee in his hands. "He looks good," Smith said, passing her a cup. "He looks alive." They'd sold the penthouse, moved into something smaller, warmer. Smith had restructured Carter Tech, brought in new leadership, focused on ethical tech development instead of ruthless expansion. He still worked long hours, still carried his father's legacy. But now he came home. Now he remembered that empires meant nothing if you had no one to share them with. Alena had started a foundation for families facing medical bankruptcy, turned her pain into purpose, used Smith's resources to make sure no one else had to choose between love and survival. They were building something together. Something real. Jake spotted them through the window, waved. Smith waved back, and Alena saw it clearly. The man who'd been hollow when she met him, terrified of feeling anything, was now overflowing with life. "I got a letter from Victoria," Smith said quietly. "She's in Barcelona, teaching underprivileged kids how to code. Is she happy?" "She's trying to be. Says watching us choose each other helped her understand that redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing differently in the future." Alena leaned against him, breathing in his warmth, his steadiness. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Everything you gave up. The ruthless CEO, the corporate warrior, all those walls you built." Smith turned her face toward his, those ice-blue eyes now full of warmth. "I regret every day I wasted being that person. Every moment I convinced myself that feeling nothing was the same as being strong." He kissed her softly. "You didn't just save your brother, Alena. You saved me." We saved each other. Jake emerged from his room, still thin but smiling, and wrapped them both in a fierce hug. "Can we go home now?" he asked. "I'm sick of this place. Home." The word had never sounded so perfect. As they walked out of the hospital together, into the San Francisco sunshine, Alena thought about the girl who'd stepped into that elevator 10 months ago, desperate, hollow, trading her life for her brother's survival. She'd thought she was giving up everything. Instead, she'd found everything she'd never known she needed. Smith took her hand, Jake on his other side, and they walked into their future together. Imperfect, complicated, beautifully human. Sometimes the greatest victories come from surrender. Sometimes the strongest walls need to crumble. Sometimes love requires you to be brave enough to let someone see your scars. And sometimes, 2 broken people can heal each other simply by choosing, every single day, to stay. The city hummed around them, alive with possibility. And for the first time in their lives, both Alena and Smith felt like they truly belonged in the world. Not in spite of their wounds, but because of them. The end.